Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, the Executive Director of the American Constitutional Rights Union, and welcome to another episode of Live Free TV, which is brought to you by the American Constitutional Rights Union, theacru.org. Again, theacru.org. You know, when we think about the threats that we have here in the United States of America right now, it's not just the drug and human sex trafficking. Now we have terrorist trafficking, the tens of thousands or maybe even hundreds of thousands of single military age males that have been brought into this country, domestic violence issues where we see so many of these local district attorneys releasing violent criminals back out into the streets. But at the same time, you still hear the left talking about disarming Americans and undermining the Second Amendment. And we must always remember the words of the Second Amendment: a regulated militia, well regulated meaning well trained, not regulated by the ATF, but a well regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. Therefore, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And so, therefore, I thought that we would bring in a young man that I've admired for quite some time, since about 2015, 2016. He is the president of the Second Amendment Institute. His name is Tyler Izaguirre. And Tyler, thanks for joining us here at Live Free TV.
Well, it's awesome to be on the show, Colonel. Thanks for having me, and you truly honor me with your accolades there, as have knowing you now for 6, 7, 8 years.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me on.
Your pleasure. Let me give folks a little bit of your background. You're the author of Gun Rights 101, an expert on the Second Amendment, and founded the Second Amendment Institute, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. In 2016, if I'm correct, you were about 21 or 22 years of age when you founded it, with a mission to educate, activate, and empower individuals to be effectively mobilized in support of the Second Amendment. As president of the Second Amendment Institute, you've been on Fox News, CBS, NBC, The Blaze, News to Share, and One America News Network as an expert on the Second Amendment. And you've also published articles in the Washington Examiner, The Hill, and AmmoLand.com. That you are well versed. And the thing that I like about it, you are one of these young people that we have got to start reaching out to with the Second Amendment, and how we have to support and defend that constitutional right in order to protect their life, liberty, property. So tell us a little bit more about the Second Amendment Institute and what you're focusing on right now.
Sure. After 4 years at University of Delaware, I came out, graduated, and started the Second Amendment Institute, and with the help of Dick Heller from DCV Heller. And that's how, of course, we met Colonel back in 2016, 2017, when I was 21, 22 years old. Mm-hmm. And right now, the organization has just grown to expanding our board of directors, bringing you on to the board as well, adding new board members in earlier this year. And now last year and this year, we're focusing more on lawsuits. So I'm a co-plaintiff representing SAI in 2 lawsuits right now in the District of Columbia, one for suing DC's ban of concealed carry on the Metro, and that's Angelo VDC. And then the other one is Hanson VDC, which is challenging the district's large capacity magazine ban. And the LCM challenge was just heard before the United States District Court of Appeals for the DC Circuit, 3-judge panel. Went pretty well, I think. I think we'll get a 2-1 victory on that case. And then the Angelo case for concealed carry ban on the Metro, we have submitted a edited complaint, and we're waiting for the judge's response on that. Of course, again, an Obama-appointed judge.
One of the things I look at is, you would think that this whole thing about the Second Amendment is settled law, if you want to use that phrase. You have the Heller versus DC case, which basically said, and went before the Supreme Court, that the Second Amendment is the law of the land. It applies, from the federal government level. Then you had McDonald versus the city of Chicago, which reinforced the Second Amendment at the local level, at the state and the municipal level. And we just recently had the Bruin decision that came out, reference New York. Why do you think it is that when it comes to the right of the American people to be able to defend themselves, that the progressive socialist left, they just don't see it as that constitutional right, which should be settled by law, because we've had the Supreme Court rule on it in 3 different cases?
Yeah, we've had the decision in Pro 2A handed down in several SCOTUS decisions now, as you said, Colonel. But the problem is the elites on the radical left, they're the ones who understand if free people are armed, they remain a free people. If we disarm the people, then we can control the people. And unfortunately, the left, the elites of the left, the gun control cabal, as I call them, have been really good at their messaging and tapping into emotions of the left and saying, oh, AR-15s are bad, guns are killing people, it's the number one cause of death in the United States, blah, 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 blah. And people are just sheep. They follow along. They don't do the research. They don't read. And they don't look at the actual facts. And, even Joe Biden's new Stasi-esque FBI, publishes crime statistics every year. And every year, hands and feet and clubs are beating out AR-15s or other types of rifles and homicides nearly 4-1. So if people just did the research and didn't let their emotions dictate, how they perceive constitutional rights, we'd be in a much better space.
That's one of the things that you brought out in your book, Gun Rights 101, where you debunked a lot of the myths and the narrative of the left out there. Are we making progress? Do you believe that it's becoming more difficult for the left to, go out there and do, as I say, an armed individual is a citizen and disarmed individual is a subject? Do you think that's getting through to the American people, especially when we look at this atmosphere where we have this increased terrorism threat right now?
I think we're in the move of the right direction. We have, look at the the demographics of new gun owners. It's single women, it's Latinos, it's African Americans. I think that we're really growing into new realms of gun owners just because the simple fact they want to defend themselves. And that needle has been moving. Obama was a great gun salesman, so Biden has been too. And more people of new backgrounds are becoming gun owners for the first time. And that's what I try to emphasize in my book too, is, I go through the big gun control lies and debunk them because I want people to be able to just know the basic facts of gun ownership and understanding the firearms and the necessity of them. Like you said, being armed if you're a citizen, and just the fact that they need it for self-defense. So I think the needle's moving in the right direction.
So when you look at your organization, one of the things that drew me to, supporting you and to continue to support you is the fact that you are really focused on getting this message to younger Americans. How is that going? I mean, do you think that the younger Americans are starting to now see that they have to be able to protect themselves, especially when you have so many young Americans that want to live in the inner city urban environments?
It's always difficult to connect with the younger generation just because they're so polarized one way or the other in politics. And they're on these college campuses where they're being brainwashed by communist and socialist professors who want to see the collapse of the free world, the collapse of the United States. So it's always a little bit more difficult to connect with the younger generation, but their brains are much more moldable than someone who's been set in their ways for 30, 40 years. And, I enjoy connecting with the young people because I say about 80%, if you can have a sit-down conversation or a calm conversation with them on a college campus or, somewhere else, they're open to new ideas and facts and figures. But then again, you're always going to have your, 20% radicals who at the end of the day are just going to get in your face, throw things at you, assault you. And we say that all the time on college campuses, especially when, like people like Charlie Kirk go on the campus and are getting assaulted by these radical lefties with 3 masks on and goggles and, shirts that say, stay jabbed. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is. And I think about Riley Gaines and how she was assaulted out at that University of San Francisco. And of course, she was a victim. I mean, she had no way of protecting herself. And even the police officers or security supposed to be with her, they just took her into a room and said, let's just hunker down, and allowed her to continue to be basically kidnapped and almost assaulted. So let's talk about California, because something has come out in California. Here in Texas, we remember the shooting that occurred, a church shooting, where it was Sulford, who was a trained NRA firearms instructor with his AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. ended up taking down that shooter there at the church. And then we also had a shooting not too far away from this podcast is filmed in White Settlement there just west of Fort Worth. Jack Wilson was very successful in taking down the shooter there. And we just recently saw a transgender individual that went into the church at Joel Osteen's church down in Houston, Texas. But yet in California, they're starting to go after church security guards. Tell us about that out there.
Yes, SB2 is very dangerous out in California right now, and Newsom is backing it. It's basically they're saying, okay, under 21 can't conceal carry, can't get a concealed carry license. They're saying we want to strengthen quote unquote sensitive places where you ban concealed carry, including churches, banks, playgrounds, theme parks. And really what really just the two that really red flag me are, again, the churches, right? Because we need defense and we need people to defend themselves and others in churches. And the other is private businesses. So California SB2 is saying, privately owned businesses, no concealed carry, unless the owner puts a sign on their window saying concealed carry allowed here, which kind of just says to me, to criminals, oh, gun-free zone, come and rob us. So those two bullet points of the sensitive places in SB2 just really blow my mind.
Well, it's amazing to me because when I think about all of this banning of people 21 and under, and we're just talking about like 18 to 21, but think about all the military men and women that you have serving out in California who are issued an M4, which is a fully automatic and go fully automatic caliber of an AR-15. But yet, if they're stationed in California, what you're saying is that they can't, go out and get a concealed carry to protect themselves. But yet we're saying that they can have the weapon to protect the United States of America. Is this type of hypocrisy really starting to become more evident to people?
Well, the left has always been filled with hypocrisy. Had a little Joe Biden moment there. Hypocrisy. So it's nothing new, and it is becoming more self-evident that the radical left, is filled with hypocrisy, especially through legislation like SB2. And now all these states are starting to ban large capacity magazines. They want to enforce new sensitive areas. Brune was a huge victory for the 2A community. But now these radical leftist states are like, well, we're not going to let that stand. So we're going to make it near impossible to get a concealed carry permit. We're going to ban people under 21 from concealed carrying. So yes, I think through not only now their rhetoric, but their actions, we're seeing the evidence just pouring out that they do not want the average citizen to be able to defend themselves. And they don't do it based on any logic or reasoning either.
When you read the Second Amendment, it's very simple language. Like I said, the regulated militia being necessary for the security of the free state. I mean, you got to understand when the founding father, when the members of the militia came out on April the 19th of 1775 at Lexington Green, there was no Army, there was no Navy, there was no Marine Corps, there was not even the United States of America. It were citizens that came out. And again, the words, therefore, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. All of these cases that have happened, before the Supreme Court in New York shall not be infringed. Why is it that you think in the heart of hearts of the left, what's their end state? What's their end goal with doing what they're doing?
Well, they know that from the Second Amendment shall not be infringed. It's not any other amendment. It's not any other right we have. So they go, okay, this is scary because we can't control it. It says shall not be infringed. Simple, plain language that's now been reinforced behind 3 Supreme Court decisions since Heller. So I just think that the radical left is just trying to pull out any stop they can to attack this. Because they know how self-evident it is and self-explanatory it is. And they just don't know how to deal with that and control people. So they go after laws. They try to pass ridiculous, tyrannical laws to enslave citizens, the everyday people like we the people. They try to go after us and just want to take away our rights so we can't defend ourselves. It boils down to that.
I find it very disturbing, especially like you say, when you have what I call the modern day brown shirts like Antifa out there on the
Mhm.
streets for Black Lives Matter, which is a subversive group. And now, we have these hundreds of thousands and even millions of quote unquote gotaways, single military age males. Still don't want the American people to be able to defend themselves, as well as all of these violent criminals that are being left out in the streets. One of the things that you hear talked about out there, and we have even seen some members from quote unquote the other side of the aisle, from the Republican side of the aisle, support this thing called red flag laws. What's your concern about red flag laws?
Red flag laws are the most atrocious attack on our constitutional rights in modern history. Red flag laws violate a number of rights: the Second Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the Fourth Amendment. It is a way for the government to come in and confiscate your guns. Now, some of these, radical organizations like Mother Jones or Brady Campaign, they'll call states with soft red flags, they call them yellow flag states. For example, Virginia, where red flag laws are there. They're not as extreme as ones in California or DC or Delaware, but they're still there. And it's just an absolute atrocity to our judicial system. It's an absolute atrocity to due process. Never in history have you had to come in and say, okay, I'm guilty until proven innocent. And that's the real gist of red flag laws. It's scary. I can call up on my neighbor and say, well, you can't call your neighbor, say police to your neighbor. Yeah, you can. You can just call it on anyone. Oh, I heard Joe and Bob have an argument last night. Joe's got guns. Next day, the cops are showing up at 4 a.m. with 30 cop cars and SWAT to take your guns away in some states.
As a matter of fact, if I recall back, I don't know, 2018 or so, there was a gentleman in Maryland that had the exact thing happen. The cops showed up there about 4 or 5 in the morning, and he was gunned down and killed based upon a red flag law order. And to this day, no one knows who brought that order about. Gary Willis, that's right, that was his name, Gary Willis, who was killed there in Maryland. Can we see more instances of this? And because again, this is a violation of your due process. I know that if someone comes banging on my door at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, the first thing that I'm going to go to retrieve.
Yeah, with that particular instance, he didn't want to give up his guns, and I don't blame him. The cops trying to force their way in the house, and who knows what happened. We still haven't seen body footage. So I think though that sets the bar. That says, okay, if the cops can do this in Maryland, why can't we do that in other states? And people, like me, like you, someone's banging on my door in the middle of the night, I'm going to grab my gun. Absolutely. I live in the District of Chaos, and for 7 years now. But it's just it allows other radical states to say, well, if they can do it in Maryland, then we can do it here. So I wouldn't be surprised if it is happening, and maybe just the news isn't covering it.
It's again a violation of so many of the constitutional rights of individuals, and especially the due process, where you are guilty of something and you have to prove your innocence, and you have to pay for it, and you have to fight to retrieve, your weapons that are taken away from you. Let's talk about another thing that I think a lot of people kind of blow off and brush off. Those that have gone out to purchase a firearm, you have to fill out an ATF form 4473. And we know that if you lie on that ATF form 4473, that's a felony offense. Why is it that we all know a certain individual by the name of Hunter Biden, President Biden's son, to lie on the 4473, but yet we still see this kabuki theater and kabuki dance, which if it were you and I, Tyler or Alan West, we'd be doing a perp walk.
Well, with Democrats to that degree, it's a double standard for the judicial system. I mean, we've seen that with the Clintons, we've seen it with Carters, we've seen it with now the Bidens, the Obama family. It's just a dual system of justice for people on the radical left. And Hunter got away. I mean, they even said he lied on the form. It's a felony. It's perjury. You can't lie on a federal form. And again, he's not doing the perp walk, and that's because he's shielded by the Biden family, the Biden regime, the Biden machine, and he'll never see a day of jail in his life. And unfortunately, we just live in a country where it's like that.
Do you opens the door for everyone that has been previously convicted under, lying on a 4473 form to say, hey, look, I want my record expunged. I mean, because obviously what you're saying is that, this is selective enforcement. And so why am I being a different standard than another citizen in the United States of America? Do you foresee that coming maybe?
With the attorneys who want to take on the cases, who next day the meme may come up that says XYZ didn't kill themselves. But I would say I love suing the government. I say if you can find the right attorney, sue the crap out of them. Absolutely. Because if Hunter Biden can get away with it, what's the difference? There's no, like you said, it's an equal protection clause denial for sure, and definitely a basis for a constitutional lawsuit.
When you look at your organization, the Second Amendment Institute, what differentiates you? I mean, we've seen what is happening with the National Rifle Association and, the dissent of Wayne LaPierre and the legal issues and problems. But what do you think really differentiates you from, the National Association for Gun Rights, the Gun Owners of America? What should people pay attention to as far as the Second Amendment Institute?
Well, one, we're a newer, younger organization. We don't come with all the malarkey, as Biden would call it, malarkey, that some other organizations that are well established, have been around for a while, come with. There's no internal drama. There's no financial issues. What you see is what you get. We're a newer, grassroots educational advocacy organization that focuses on educating the younger generations with a younger board of directors and younger executive officers. And we also focus on lawsuits that we will not allow the NRA to hijack, which is what you see with SAF, the Second Amendment Foundation, and the NRA files their amicus briefs and tells their 5.5 million dues-paying members it's an NRA victory when it wasn't. So we are focusing on the lawsuits that may not receive national coverage or raise millions of dollars, but we're defending the everyday person. And that's why we're involved with the lawsuits we're involved with. In fact, I just went to register my AR-15 2 weeks ago in D.C., with the hope for a denial so that we can sue the district for an assault weapons ban, first ever in our nation's history. And we want to tackle the red flag laws. Like I said, we want to defend the everyday person. We know these people can't write $10,000, $20,000 checks, but we want to defend them and set precedent for the rest of law-abiding citizens who want to own firearms.
You have your legislative day on Capitol Hill coming up there in Washington. Next month of March. What are some of the priorities? What's some of the focuses for the SAI, Second Amendment Institute, when it comes to legislative priorities?
Sure. Well, we definitely want to educate legislators on pressing issues for the 2A legislation, including getting that national reciprocity bill passed. I mean, last Congress, when you came up with us here to DC, over almost 200 members had signed on to it. A few others, Republicans who I won't name, that were surprising to me. But our big focus is the national reciprocity for concealed carry. That's huge to us. If I have
explain that a little bit more for people that may be not familiar.
Sure. That means if I have a concealed carry license in DC, it's valid for all the states, Pennsylvania, all the other states, Virginia, all the other states. And that's huge. It's like a driver's license. If I have a driver's license in Delaware, where I'm from, I can drive in all the other states, 49 other states. So why can't I apply my concealed carry license to the other states, just like a driver's license? Mm-hmm. So that's big. And the other issue is legislation regarding not needing a carry permit to carry. So national constitutional carry, which is important also. But I think the national concealed carry reciprocity bill is much more likely to get to the floor for a vote than national constitutional carry.
And I want to just emphasize on that. I want people to understand that in the Constitution of the United States of America, one constitutional rights you have is freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Well, that doesn't end at certain states. I mean, it's a constitutional right that is valid all across the United States of America. So why is it that the next constitutional right that you have, the Second Amendment, is not valid in all? We've had countless amounts of Supreme Court decisions on it. And I will tell you that when you look at a national constitutional carry, we finally got that pushed through here in Texas when I was the state party chairman. That is not saying that we're going to have the Wild West. That's not saying that everybody's, that's everyone's argument. But the Constitution, you have to pass that 4473 background check as long as you don't lie on it like Hunter Biden. And if you pass your background check, then that's your weapon and you should be able to carry it. But the reciprocity aspect, that's why we have the concealed carry license and permit, so you can have the rest to go to other states. But you should be able to carry that weapon and protect yourself and enjoy your constitutional right that you have. Tyler, as we wrap up, where can people learn more about the Second Amendment Institute, and where can people get your book, Gun Rights 101?
Sure. It's sainational.org, sainational.org right there on the ticker right there. Awesome. And then for Gun Rights 101, it's on Amazon. Just Gun Rights 101, it'll pop right up. And there's a nice foreword by Colonel Weston there. And, George Lyon, who's my attorney, and also on the board of SAI, made sure that the facts and legal jargon was correct in the book. And it's a real easy read. It'll take you 15, 20 minutes. It's a good guide. There's about 45 gun control lies debunked in that book, most ever published in one book. So, and it's only like $13-14. So it's a good read, good solid read.
And can people go to the SAI website to also support your organization?
They can, yes. sainational.org/donate or /join, depending if you want to come on as a member or if you just want to donate. It's a 501c3. It is a tax-deductible donation. And it would really, really help our legal defense war chest as we prepare to file for an assault weapons ban and go after some red flag laws too.
Well, I thank you for taking the time to be here with us on Live Free TV, because if we don't have that Second Amendment, it severely degrades our ability to live free in the longest running constitutional republic that the world has ever known. Tyler Izaguirre, you are truly what we hope and pray for the United States. Seeing you grow up and become a fantastic young man, and I know that you will continue to be a champion for the Second Amendment here in the United States of America. So God bless you. God bless the work you're doing at the Second Amendment Institute. And thank you for being with us again here at Live Free TV.
Thanks for having me, Colonel. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.